Every Disney World trip eventually turns into a list of places that used to be there. Ask anyone who's been going for more than a decade, and they'll start naming spots that don't exist anymore, restaurants they built entire vacation traditions around, places they took their kids for the first time, places they always meant to go back to on the next trip and never got the chance before the doors closed for good. Disney World isn't static, and it never really has been, even in the eras guests remember fondly as the golden years of the resort. But there's a real cost to that constant reinvention, and it shows up most clearly in the restaurant graveyard, the growing list of dining spots that didn't get a renovation, didn't get a new name and a fresh coat of paint over the same bones, but simply closed forever and never came back in any form at all. Some of these closures made headlines the day they happened, covered by every Disney fan site within hours. Others happened so quietly that guests only noticed months later when they went looking for an old favorite on their next trip and found a construction wall standing in its place instead, with no announcement they'd ever seen. Here are 12 Disney World restaurants that are never coming back, and what actually happened to each one. Number 12, Pizza Planet at Disney's Hollywood Studios. For a certain generation of Disney kids, walking into this arcade and quick service combo felt like stepping directly into the original Toy Story movie, which makes sense since that was exactly the point of the design from the start. It closed back in 2016, and the space was transformed into Pizza Rizzo, trading the arcade cabinets out for Muppets theming built around Rizzo the Rat. That would have been the end of the story on its own, a simple concept swap, except Pizza Rizzo itself ended up closing in 2025 as part of the broader clearing out of Muppets Courtyard to make room for the new Monsters, Inc. land, which means an entire stretch of Hollywood Studios has now lost two completely different pizza concepts back to back on the exact same patch of real estate in less than a decade. Number 11, Big River Grill and Brewing Works on Disney's Boardwalk. This one flew under the radar for a lot of guests, which is exactly what made it special to the people who actually knew about it and made a point of stopping in every trip. It was one of the only spots anywhere on Disney property where the beer in your glass had actually been brewed in-house, on site, rather than trucked in from somewhere else entirely, and it leaned into a casual, relaxed atmosphere that stood apart from the Boardwalk's louder, more performative neighbors. It never had the flash of those neighbors, but it built a loyal, quiet following of regulars who treated it as their default go-to on every trip, regardless of what else was new nearby. It closed suddenly and permanently, and there was no dramatic announcement tour or extended farewell campaign attached to it. Guests just noticed one visit that it wasn't there anymore, with something else already moving into the space before most people had even processed it was gone. Number 10, Ample Hills Creamery, also on Disney's Boardwalk. This one has a genuinely strange origin story for a Disney closure, stranger than almost anything else on this list. The Brooklyn-based ice cream company had counted Bob Iger himself as an outspoken fan before Disney ever brought them onto property in any official capacity, with Iger reportedly reaching out directly to praise the ice cream and ask, half joking at first, about bringing it into the parks in some form. That relationship led to a real licensing partnership, Star Wars and Marvel tie-in flavors included, and a flagship location that opened on the Boardwalk in 2016 in a prime spot between the ESPN Club and the Boardwalk Bakery. It served some of the best scoops on property for a few genuinely good years, including a build-your-own ice cream sandwich and an ice cream taco guests still bring up in nostalgia threads today, years after the fact. Then the parent company ran out of runway back in Brooklyn, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2020, and the Disney location closed along with the rest of the company's troubles, never to reopen, and eventually replaced by Boardwalk Ice Cream instead in the same space. A licensing deal that started with genuine executive enthusiasm at the very top of the entire company ended in a bankruptcy filing a few years later, and the ice cream taco went down with it. Number 9. Restaurant Marrakesh, deep inside Epcot's Morocco Pavilion. If you made it all the way to the back of Morocco, past the market stalls and the tile workout front, you'd find a full table service restaurant with live belly dancing, live musicians, and some of the most intricate tile work anywhere in World Showcase. For years it operated as a third-party concept run by outside operators rather than Disney directly, the way several World Showcase pavilions historically have been run. Disney took over ownership of the pavilion from those third-party operators in 2020, and the restaurant space has not functioned as a full restaurant since that changeover. It has only been used as a seasonal lounge in the years since. It is not a dramatic demolition story like some of the others on this list. It is quieter and, in some ways, sadder. A restaurant that did not get bulldozed for anything new. It just never got its doors reopened as a restaurant again. Number 8. Aunt Polly's Dockside Inn, out on Tom Sawyer Island in the Magic Kingdom. This was the hidden gem of the entire park for guests who actually knew about it. A seasonal quick service spot you could only reach by raft, tucked away from the main crowds entirely, serving barbecue sandwich biscuits, pretzel sticks, peanut butter and jelly, and a root beer float you could enjoy while actually looking out over the rivers of America instead of fighting for a bench somewhere busier and louder. It closed permanently in 2025 when the entire island shut down to make way for construction on Magic Kingdom's new Cars-themed land, reportedly titled Piston Peak. A restaurant you needed a raft just to reach was never going to be Magic Kingdom's most visited counter service spot on paper, but that exact inconvenience was the whole appeal for the guests who made the trip out there anyway. Number 7. ESPN Club on Disney's Boardwalk. If there was a playoff game happening anywhere during your trip, this was where you went, full stop, no other consideration needed. Televisions were mounted everywhere throughout the building, reportedly even inside the bathrooms, and the menu stuck to reliable pub food that never tried to be anything more ambitious than it needed to be for the crowd it was serving night after night. For sports fans specifically, it was one of the few genuinely essential stops on the entire property. A guaranteed good time regardless of which team you were pulling for or how the game actually turned out. It closed permanently, and the building was eventually overhauled entirely into the cake bake shop by Gwendolyn Rogers, a swing from a loud sports bar covered wall-to-wall in screens to an elegant Instagram-forward dessert destination that's about as complete a tonal reversal as a single storefront on the same property can realistically make. Guests who used to plan their entire trip itinerary around whether ESPN Club had their team's game on now walk past a bakery case full of towering photogenic cakes in the exact same footprint. Number 6. Mama Melrose's Ristorante Italiano at Disney's Hollywood Studios. This one had genuinely bizarre what-if history behind it that most guests never knew about while they were sitting down to eat there. Positioned right across from Muppet Vision 3D, the space was originally being built mid-construction as a Muppets-themed restaurant, tentatively titled The Great Gonzo's Pandemonium Pizza Parlor, complete with plans for Rizzo, the rat-style animatronic waiters, actually delivering food directly to tables throughout the dining room. Disney theme park legend holds that the ceiling beams were engineered specifically to support those planned animatronics, structural bones built for a restaurant concept that never actually opened to the public in that form. Then, Jim Henson passed away. A string of Muppets projects across the whole company stalled out indefinitely in the aftermath, and the restaurant got retooled mid-build into a much more conventional Italian eatery instead, with none of the original theming ever making it past the blueprint stage. That version, string lights and all, went on to serve Hollywood studios for over 30 years, quietly inconsistent from one visit to the next, but genuinely beloved anyway by the guests who kept coming back, before it served its final meals in June of 2025, alongside Muppet Vision 3D itself, clearing the ground for the incoming Monsters Incorporated land, a restaurant that could have been an entirely different, more ambitious concept from day one, quietly closing 30 years later without most guests ever knowing what almost was. Number 5. Restaurantosaurus at Disney's Animal Kingdom. This was an opening day fixture of Dinoland USA, themed as a mess hall for fictional Dino Institute interns, complete with paleontology student site, gags scattered throughout the dining room for anyone paying close enough attention to notice them. In its earliest years, it even operated as one of Walt Disney World's actual McDonald's locations, back when that specific partnership still existed inside the parks themselves before Disney eventually phased it out resort-wide. It closed to clear the way for the new Tropical America's Land, which will bring attractions themed around Encanto and Indiana Jones to the same footprint Dinoland used to occupy entirely, right down to the walkways. An opening day restaurant, present since the park's earliest days in 1998, gone in the same sweep that took out the entire themed land surrounding it. Number 4. Shula's Steakhouse at the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin. Named for football legend Don Shula, this was the dark-wood, old-school steakhouse option for guests who wanted a proper night out somewhere quieter than the parks themselves, reliably excellent, reliably old-fashioned, and reliably tucked away from the usual theme park noise for nearly 3 decades running, popular with convention guests and vacationing families alike. It served its very last steaks in June of 2025 and is being replaced by bourbon steak from chef Michael Mina, a changeover from one genuinely respected steakhouse concept directly into another rather than a themed land clearing. Everything out at once the way several other entries on this list went, which makes it one of the gentler closures here, even for guests who genuinely miss the original. Number 3. Mickey's Backyard BBQ at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort. This was character dining at its most joyfully chaotic, an open-air pavilion where kids could genuinely hit the dance floor with Mickey, Minnie, and Goofy, while the whole family worked through unlimited ribs, chicken, and strawberry shortcake at the same time. No reservation stress, no formal dress code, just a genuinely loud and happy night in the woods. It closed at the very end of 2018 to make room for planned resort expansion at Fort Wilderness, tied to long-standing Disney Vacation Club development plans for that stretch of the property that had been on the table in some form for years before construction actually began. Guests were told at the time it might return in some future form once construction wrapped up. It never did, and Hoop-Dee-Doo Musical Review, the resort's other dinner show, continued on in its place as the last one standing. Number 2. The Spirit of Aloha dinner show at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort. This one had been part of the Polynesian since the resort itself first opened back in 1971. An open-air luau in Luau Cove, featuring hula dancing, live drumming, and a genuine fire knife performance, paired with an all-you-care-to-enjoy spread of Aloha pulled pork, Polynesian barbecued ribs, roasted chicken, and pineapple guava cake. For generations of guests, it was practically a rite of passage, the kind of dinner show grandparents took their grandkids to see, specifically because they remembered seeing it themselves decades earlier. The show went dark in March of 2020, along with the rest of Walt Disney World during the pandemic shutdown, and for 2 full years afterward, guests held on to real hope that it would eventually come back the way most of the resort eventually did, but once things reopened. In March of 2022, Disney confirmed it would not. The show was retired permanently to make way for a new Disney Vacation Club villa expansion being built directly at the site of Luau Cove itself. One guest, reacting to the announcement after decades of attending with their own family, called it death by 1,000 little cuts, not one single dramatic loss all at once, but the latest entry in a long accumulation of smaller ones stacking up over the years, each individually survivable, together adding up to something guests were finally willing to call a real pattern. 51 years of fire dancers and hula lessons replaced by villa construction. And number 1, the Adventurers Club on what used to be Pleasure Island. This wasn't really a restaurant in the traditional sense at all. It was closer to a fully staged, interactive theatrical experience built around a bar where cast members stayed in character for the entire night as eccentric 1930s-era explorers, mingling directly with guests, running ongoing bits, and greeting every newcomer with the club's signature call of kungaloosh. Regulars would return trip after trip, specifically to see how the storylines and running gags had evolved since their last visit, treating it less like a single meal and more like an ongoing show they were personally part of. It closed in 2008 when Disney shut down the Pleasure Island nightclub district entirely, and unlike almost everything else on this list, there was no themed land or new headline attraction built directly on top of what it left behind, just Disney Springs, gradually, over the years that followed its closure. Nearly 2 decades later, Disney history buffs still trade kungaloosh back and forth like a password, and message boards still fill up regularly with guests trying to describe an experience that's become almost impossible to explain to anyone who never got to see it in person for themselves. Of everything on this list, it's the one guests seem least willing to let go of, even after all this time has passed. None of these 12 restaurants closed for the same reason, and lumping them together as one single story would flatten something that's actually more complicated underneath the surface. Some were cleared out to make room for entire new themed lands, Restaurantosaurus and Dino Land, Mama Melrose's and Muppets Courtyard, Pizza Planet's building losing 2 different concepts in a row on the same footprint. Some were casualties of a bankruptcy filing that had nothing to do with Disney's own decisions at all, like Ample Hills. Some were retired quietly to make way for a hotel expansion and villa construction, like Mickey's Backyard BBQ and the Spirit of Aloha, both sacrificed to the same underlying pressure to squeeze more Disney Vacation Club rooms out of existing resort footprints. And at least one, Restaurant Marrakesh, didn't so much close outright as just never fully reopen once ownership of the pavilion changed hands from a third-party operator to Disney itself. What connects all 12 is simpler than any of the individual reasons behind them. Each one built a real, loyal following while it existed. Each one meant something specific to the guests who kept going back trip after trip without ever really questioning it, and none of them are coming back, no matter how many guests still ask about them in comment sections and forums years after the fact. If you had a reservation at one of these, or a memory tied to one that this video didn't do full justice to, tell us about it in the comments below. We want to hear the specific meal, not just the name of the place. And if you want to see which restaurants are still standing right now, but shouldn't be trusted the way they used to be, the decline videos are already sitting right there waiting for you.